why do you hide? Where is that moonlight trail that leads to your side? Just like the Moonraker goes in.
Hello, my fellow 007 fans, and welcome to my latest James Bond movie review, where today I review Moonraker. Okay, I'll put it away. So, Moonraker, the fourth mission for Roger Moore as James Bond, and it is the 11th film in the James Bond franchise. Once again, directed by Gilbert. Moonraker, basically how this Bond movie came about is that after the success of a certain movie known as Star Wars, the Bond producers saw the success of that movie back in 1977 and decided to postpone For Your Eyes Only until after this one. And basically Moonraker is essentially what you would get if you combined James Bond and Star Wars. And I happen to be a fan of both of those franchises, so hey, a win-win for me. The basic plot of Moonraker is James Bond investigates the mid-air theft of a space shuttle and discovers a plot to commit global genocide. There you go, that's the essential premise of Moonraker. So, Moonraker, ooh, this is going to be a fun one. This is a Bond movie that most Bond fans love to hate. And I can kind of see why. I mean, okay, it is a little more sillier and goofier than some of the previous installments. For me, this is probably the most Marmite of all of the Bond movies. Moonraker is the Marmite Bond film. By that, I mean you either love it or you hate it. So, where do I stand on it? I'm sorry to disappoint some of you, but I love this movie. Okay, it's not perfect, and it's certainly not as good as the previous three movies, I don't think. But that being said, I just have a ton of fun with this movie. Moonraker is just fun. It's just fun. It is so much fun. It is a fantastically fun romp of a Bond movie. I mean, yes, it is stupid in places. It is silly, and it is not perfect. But it's solid, man. It is a solid film. First of all, let's get the bad stuff out of the way. The first thing to say is the whole idea of Bond going into space. Yes, I can understand some people's reservations with that. For me, I don't mind it. I mean, it works for Roger Moore. Any other Bond and it wouldn't work. I mean, God, can you imagine Daniel Craig going into space? Actually, funny I mentioned that, because they did actually, they made a Bond video game called 007 Legends, and they had levels from Moonraker, but they redesigned the game to basically include a render of Daniel Craig's Bond in each of the missions. So it made the Moonraker levels really bizarre. The movie itself is just so entertaining. It is so much fun. The bad things are, yeah, it is a little silly. I mean, yeah, some of the moments are a little silly in this movie, particularly the double take pigeon, which came out of nowhere. That was an editing goof, which kind of they thought was humorous and they left it in there, but it's just totally out of place. It really doesn't fit, and it disrupts the momentum of that chase scene in Venice, which is really a shame, to be honest. It's not very good. Also, Jaws comes back in the movie, which is great. I love the fact that Jaws is back in the movie, but there is always a catch. But they give Jaws a girlfriend in this movie. They literally, I mean, the character is called Dolly. They literally just write her in out of nowhere. It's just done for a cheap laugh, and there's that moment where they meet after he's crashed from the cable car, and then they look into each other's eyes, and it's meant to be like a love at first sight thing. The music is swelling, going da 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 da, and it's really stupid. It just does not fit the movie at all. I'm okay with Jaws coming back, but to give him a girlfriend was really unnecessary. Title song. I'm not really a big fan of the Moonraker title song. It's not that it's bad, it's the fact that the lyrics make absolutely no sense. Where are you? Why do you hide? Where is that moonlight train that leads to your side? Just like the Moonraker goes in search of his dream of gold? What the fuck? I mean, don't get me wrong. The song is pleasant, and Shirley Bassey sings it very well. And it is a beautiful tune. The da-da-da-da-da. And it's a nice ballad. Clearly they're following the tradition of Nobody Does It Better by having a ballad. The problem is, the lyrics make no sense. What the hell is a Moonraker, and why does it go in search for gold? I don't get it. That being said, there are far worse title songs in the series. There are far worse. And the fact that they got Shirley Bassey back is amazing. But this song, I've heard, was a rush job. It was replacing another song at the last minute, so no wonder they just threw the lyrics together just to fit the words Moonraker into a song. You know, it's just very convoluted and just stupid. They should have just called the song something else. It should have just been another love song. Like, the film Octopussy doesn't have a song called Octopussy, and we'll come to that song when we get to the Octopussy review. Yeah, of the 3 songs that Bassey did, this is definitely the weakest. The title sequence is okay, there's some nice visual imagery there, but it's not the best. I mean, the blue colours are nice, but it's very plain, and there's just loads of shots of women. There's not much to it, to be honest. As for Lois Chiles as Dr. Holly Goodhead, she's not great, to be honest. I find her to be particularly stiff, particularly wooden in the role. She's a babe. She is a gorgeous lady. She really is, but she just doesn't have any chemistry with Roger Moore, and it comes across as very stiff. Like, there are lines, like when they're on the cable car, and she says, "Hold on, James," and he says, "The thought had occurred to me." Come on, give it a bit more delivery. Like, and also when they're reunited in the underground base. And she says, "James, come on. You can do better than that." So, not a great performance from her. Okay, maybe it was a little silly to have the Moonraker laser guns in the film, but you know what? When they send Bond into space, it doesn't matter to me too much. I kind of like that. The only other thing I would say about Moonraker is the one-liners. Some of the one-liners don't work. The last one, when she says, "Take me around the world one more time." Oh, it's not a euphemism there. The one where after Drax has been cast off into the cold vacuum of space, Goodhead comes in and she says, "Where's Drax?" And then Bond says, "He had to fly." It's not Moore's delivery of the line, it's just the line itself is really out of place, and it doesn't work for me. Also, my other negative of the movie is that the story is basically a rehash of The Spy Who Loved Me. The fact that Gilbert returns to direct it is also another affirmation as to that. The reason why I say that is basically the plot of The Spy Who Loved Me was the hijacking of nuclear submarines. This one, hijacking of space crafts. Both movies directed by the same person. Also, the villain's plan is very similar. In the previous film, Stromberg wanted to create a new world under the sea. In this one, Drax wants to create a new world in another world, basically, in space somewhere. The plot is very uninventive, but that kind of doesn't matter to me too much because I just have so much fun watching this movie. That is all the negatives out the way. Positive time. Woo! The cast are terrific. Roger Moore in his 4th appearance as James Bond, and he hasn't lost his mojo. I mean, this is definitely not his best performance because he's not given the chance to be as tough as he normally is. However, I do really like Roger Moore in this movie, and he carries it very well. And this sort of movie fits Roger Moore like a glove. Michael Lonsdale as Hugo Drax. He is the villain of this film, and I think he's a very good villain. And he's an improvement over Stromberg. Actually, he actually has something called character, and I like his plan very much. Although it is very similar to the previous film. I love how cold he is. Like, there's a line that he says at the beginning where he says, "Look after Mr. Bond. See that some harm comes to him." Richard Kiel returns as Jaws, and yay! Richard Kiel is just amazing as Jaws, and thank God that he came back, because he is a delight to watch on screen this time. I do think he's a bit better in the previous film, The Spy Who Loved Me, but I do really enjoy Jaws in this film, despite the fact that they give him a girlfriend, which is kind of unnecessary. The fact that Jaws converts to the good side at the end is a nice change of character, and kind of unexpected, and it's something that I appreciate that they did, because we were never going to see Jaws again, so, you know, it was fine for them to do that. There's a moment, where he's toasting with his girlfriend, and he says, "Well, here's to us." That is the one and only time Jaws will speak in the entire series. So that's kind of interesting. Later down the line in the film Spectre, we'd have another henchman known as Mr. Hinks, and he would do a similar thing. But I'll talk more about Spectre when I get to it. The other Bond girl of this film is Corrine Defer, played by Corrine, Clery. She's not in the movie very long, but she is gorgeous. Woo. I mean, what is with the attractive women in this film? Her death is rather brutal, I must say. I mean, people complain about this film being silly and over the top. Yes, it is, but scenes like that make me think, oh, okay, there's still a serious tone somewhere in this film, and that's definitely the most serious scene of the film, when Corrine dies tragically. She gets eaten by wild dogs. In the words of Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, Smithers, release the hounds. I have to talk about the MI6 regulars. Bernard Lee as M. Unfortunately, this will be his last appearance in the series, very sadly, because he passed away after this film was released, which was a real shame. So in the next film, For Your Eyes Only, there is no M, and I'll talk more about that when we get to that review. As for this film, he gives a great final performance. He gets a fair amount to do, actually, because the MI6 regulars do travel around a bit more in this one, and we see them for a couple of extra scenes than what we normally get, so which is lovely. And I mean, they didn't know this was going to be Bernard Lee's last film, but it's nice that they thought to give him a bit more to do, which is great. Lois Maxwell as Moneypenny. She's great as well. She's starting to show her age now. She's starting to show that she's aging, because she's been in the series since the beginning, since Sean Connery, so she wouldn't have very long left in this part, which is a shame. But I like the moments she has here with Bond, especially when he turns up, when Q Branch are testing the Moonraker laser guns, and he has that little scene with her there, which is lovely. A bit more, she has a bit more in this film than she did in the previous film, so that's good. Desmond Llewelyn as Q is always a delight. You never have a bad word to say about Desmond. He's just wonderful, utterly wonderful. Also, there's something I forgot to talk about in my previous Roger Moore reviews, which was the gun barrel. In the first two Roger Moore films, the gun barrel was him doing this sort of pose. In the rest of his films, he does this. I like both versions of the gun barrel. I think I prefer his first one, though. I just think that's more Bond. The action scenes are some of the most fun in the entire series. The pre-opening title sequence on the plane is one of the best of the entire series. When Bond is fighting Jaws in mid-air. That is impressive. That is very impressive, and it adds a lot of scope to this film. The weakest action scene is definitely the boat chase in Venice. It's ruined by the double-take pigeon, but it's a pretty okay sequence for what it is, but it's sad that the last part of it is ruined, really. There is another action scene which is set in a parade in Rio de Janeiro, where Bond and Jaws have a minor scuffle. There's an earlier action sequence where Bond is fighting the Chinese henchman, whose name escapes me. He's not in the movie for very long, but he has a great fight scene with Bond in I think it's a museum, and then he throws him out of a clock tower and he says, "Play it again, Sam." There's also another boat chase in which Jaws ends up falling off a waterfall, and that's a pretty good chase as well. The cable cart scene is also a very good one, as well as the sequence in the van where Bond and I knew you said goodnight, Goodhead are strapped to these little beds, and then Bond has to kick his way out of the van. That's pretty cool. Of course, the finale, the Moonraker laser battle, is just brilliant. The space battle it's not something we're ever going to see in James Bond again, but for what it was, I loved it. The space battle is incredible. I think, on a technical standpoint, it looks really good. The visual effects for the time are pretty amazing. I mean, yeah, okay, they're dated now, but looking at them then, this would be pretty spectacular on the big screen. And, they must have spoken to ILM and the people that worked on Star Wars to wonder how they got those effects, and you know what, good on them. You'd be hard pressed to find someone who doesn't think that this film would be centered around Star Wars. The film is paced really well as well. It's 2 hours long, it zips by, it doesn't drag once. Yes, some of the silly elements do bog it down, but there are other things about it which do work. The fact is, Bond only goes into space towards the end of the movie. Most of the movie, it's like a normal Bond movie. He's going on his mission and he's fine, and it's only when we get to the third act of the movie when it goes into space. I could understand people's reservations for this film, but I personally have a great time with Moonraker. I think Moonraker is just so much fun. It's not perfect, It's not the best film in the series, and it's not the best Roger Moore movie for me, but it is a very good, solid, entertaining ride. And I think it works. I do think the plot should have been more inventive, though. The plot really should have been more inventive. On a scale of 1 to 10, I will rate Moonraker a very solid 8 out of 10. So, that is my review of Moonraker. Stay tuned next time when we review the 12th Bond film, which is Roger Moore's 5th movie, For Your Eyes Only. So, thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'm Mr. Chiles 11. See ya.